sexy back. We're bringing sexy back.
Let's get it started. Harder, won't you give it up?
Hello, beautiful lady. Yes, I am talking to you. It is Thursday, and you know what goes down here on Thursday. Wife Life with Dr. Gail goes down here on Thursday. So do me a favor. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe button and the little bell right next to it so you'll know when I go live. And so tonight, I want to talk to you about 7 little silly fights that cause huge damage in your marriage. Yes, 7 little fights that will cause huge damage in your marriage. And a lot of times people don't realize that the little things are what begin to build up in your marriage and draw huge gaps between you and your spouse, right? It's just the little things. It's the little things that we begin to take for granted, right? And that we continue to do all the time that cause huge gaps in our marriage. So let's get into the teaching. Number 1, argument starter. Number 1, argument starter is what's for dinner? Yes, what's for dinner? When you ask that question, it's like, I don't know. What do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? And it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. If you continue this pattern all the time, it literally can start building a crack in your marriage. And a lot of people take that for granted. But again, it can become a huge sore in your marriage. So if you know that you don't know what you want for dinner, right? And your spouse doesn't know what that you guys want for dinner, and you always constantly are arguing about the same exact thing, I say put some of your favorite dinners that you guys both love in a jar, and when you get to the point where you don't know what you want for dinner, just pick something out of the jar, and that's what you're going to have for dinner, right? And this is something so simple, but it can, literally stop you guys from arguing about one of the most simplest things, what's for dinner. Number 2, the cook and clean debate. A lot of people think if I cook, you should at least be able to clean up after me, right? Then some people think you should be able to do both and we just alternate days. You need to have a discussion about, which one works best for both of you guys. Because fighting over something that is so simple, again, becomes really huge after a couple of times, after year after year after year. So really come up with a routine. Some people like to cook and clean and alternate days. Some people feel if I have slaved over the stove and cooked, you can at least clean. I'm that girl. I'm the girl that if I cook, you can at least clean, right? But do what works best for you and your spouse. Don't make this into a big thing. Come to a meeting of a mind. Number 3, directions to a destination. This is huge. Now, for most men, they don't want anybody telling them how to deal with directions. They want to figure it out. They don't want anybody to ask them or tell them how to get to a destination, right? And this you would think with GPS going on now that people still wouldn't be arguing about how to get to a certain destination. But it is still one of the top ones that make couples argue. So my thoughts are is if you and your spouse argue about destination, how to get to somewhere, whatever, map it out before you get going. Don't get in the car and try to figure it out, right? Map it out before you get ready to go. And therefore, it will not be something because you're on your way to a destination, right? And it's probably to dinner or, on a vacation or something like that. And you want to get there and still be able to enjoy yourself. Number 4, who ate the last leftovers? This is huge. Who ate the last leftovers? If there's leftovers in the refrigerator, at least have a conversation about who's taking what for lunch, or if you're splitting it or whatever, because it does cause some friction if you have in mind that you're going to eat that for lunch and your spouse is taking it to work for lunch and taking all the portions or whatever. At least just have the courtesy to say, hey, I'm getting ready to eat or whatever, the last of whatever. At least have that conversation, because again, this is your spouse and you don't want to be fighting over something so small as leftovers, right? At least have the courtesy to say, do you want some? I'm getting ready to take some. Or say, we have this amount of left, or, I'm going to divvy it up for both of us to go to lunch, or there's not enough, I'm going to buy lunch, you want to take it, or vice versa. Have the conversation. Number 5, why is your cell phone always in your hand? This is a huge one. People are on social media like nobody's business, checking their phones, checking their emails, just checking, right? And sometimes we do it at the most inappropriate time, especially when it's dinner time or you're trying to spend quality time with your spouse. Put your phones down, right? Because having conversation and spending quality time and talking to one another and just understanding what the other person has to say or going through is one of the most important things that you can do for your spouse. So put the cell phone down. It is not part of you. It is definitely not something that's tied to you, and it shouldn't be tied to you. Your spouse, and spending quality time and being 100% present when you guys are together is what's most important, okay? Number 6, the length of how long you take showers. The length of your showers can cause huge fights and arguments in a marriage, because a lot of times spouses take showers, back to back, right? And if the person has spent 30 minutes in the shower, a lot of times there's not a lot of hot water left. And it can become so inconvenient. And I deal with this because my husband loves to take long showers, and I am an in and out kind of person, and it can cause friction, right? So be considerate of your spouse and say, you know what, I'm not going to take such a long shower, use up all the hot water and the resources and stuff like that. So be considerate of your spouse when it comes to how long you engage in the shower. And if you know you're going to take a long shower, tell your spouse, hey, halfway through it, just come join me in the shower, because I just feel like I want to be in the shower a long time. That can resolve the conversation. Y'all can have some intimacy in the shower, both walk out clean, and you did 2 for 1. So just think about that. He or she, whoever is having this issue with these long showers, halfway the spouse gets in, y'all can have intimacy, clean yourselves up, get out at the same time, argument resolved. That's a good tip. And number 7, how to deal with in-laws. A lot of times, this is a huge thing that goes on in marriages, right? Especially if you have in-laws that want to be involved in your marriage, in your decision making, every aspect. That can cause huge problems, right? And just to let you know, I understand that you became, 2 families came together, right? When you guys came together, I get it. And you want to have a relationship with your in-laws, but you also need to set some boundaries for both sets of in-laws, right? Set some boundaries that you and your spouse come up with together, and stick to them, and make your in-laws fit into those boundaries. Because again, this is your marriage, not their marriage. And you want to make sure that you guys stay strong, and it's never, well, your mother or your dad is always in our business. No, this is your marriage, and you can set healthy boundaries, and your in-laws, they love you and they will adapt to the boundaries that you set. But they have to be boundaries that you and your husband both are comfortable with, and that you both are able to articulate to that particular parent or in-law, right? about how things are ran in your household. So I pray that these tips have helped you guys and open your eyes to just looking at things different, because you don't want to argue over these little small things that become really huge in your marriage. Okay, I thank you so much for joining me here. I'm here every single Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I love you to pieces, and I will see you next week.
Let's get it started. Harder, won't you give it up? What you want, body, we're going